Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the School Safety Free Period podcast. I'm Amanda Klinger.
And I'm Dr. Amy Klinger.
And we are with the Educators School Safety Network. We are a national nonprofit organization and we provide school safety training and technical assistance and professional development to educators throughout the United States and Canada. But every once in a while, we are a little bit less serious and a little bit less academic. And we have this, our School Safety Free Period, where we still talk about, issues that are facing our educators and school safety issues, but typically we are able to cut loose a little bit and talk about some of the things that are maybe a little bit more of the silly side of school safety. So, what do you
Silly?
have?
I don't know. Silly, but
Well,
like
less tragic. I mean,
shockingly ridiculous might be.
well, by silly, I mean slightly less, slightly ridiculous, but I mean, there is a lot in the work that we do that is really, really serious and has often, deadly or very catastrophic consequences. And so in the school safety free period, we try to focus more on things where the consequences are not as high, the stakes are not as high, but there are lessons to be learned for educators and administrators. Does that seem fair?
Yeah. So today, I think we will talk about the consequences and the cost of bad judgment.
I think that's
And I
every
would
day.
like
Today and every day, we talk about the consequences and costs of bad judgment.
and I would like to take it in a escalating fashion from minor lapses in judgment to what were you thinking? So
Okay.
that's our continuum.
Okay.
So we'll start. You can start with the first one, the minor lapse in judgment where cheerleaders are concerned. And I would just let a little bit of my bias show as a former middle school principal. Cheerleaders were sometimes the best and the worst of what we had going on in a middle school. So please, all you cheerleaders out there, don't flood me with hate mail. I'm just saying the nature of cheerleading tryouts and adolescent seventh grade girls and all that can sometimes be a little problematic mix. Sometimes cheerleading advisors don't always have the best judgment. So that being said, go ahead.
True or false, Dr. Klinger, you were also once a cheerleading advisor.
I was a cheerleading advisor.
I know you spent most of your career as a principal on the other side of the cheer advisor dichotomy, but you were also a cheerleading advisor.
And you know what? I will say to my former cheerleaders out there, I had a great time being a cheerleading advisor. It was super fun. The kids were great, but I also will say the squads that I had was not the high level dance mom competitive sort of cheerleading that you see now, which I think does sometimes exacerbate some of these problems. It's sort of like, you're playing fun pickup basketball or you're playing in the, what do you call the high end youth one? What do you call
AAU.
that? Yeah. So, I mean, I had it easy in the sense I had great kids and people were having fun and it wasn't, like cutthroat. So I was lucky.
Okay. So this comes to us from Texas, from a middle school, and this was, I think, just earlier this month, right? I think this was just
Yes,
very
just a
recent.
couple weeks ago.
So you had a middle school cheer team where the kids did a cheer that they were not supposed to do, that the advisor said was disrespectful and inappropriate.
And now I want to know what that cheer
I
is,
know.
but they don't tell you.
I know this is the reason that I can only teach graduate students and no one younger, because every time there's like the bad behavior of like the K-12 kids, I usually find it to be very funny. So that's why I'm not cut out to be a
Probably
K-12
wasn't
educator.
funny, but it might have been.
It may have been funny. It may have been inappropriate and funny. But anyway, so they did this cheer, and so the next time I guess they come to practice, the advisor is going to have them do a punishment, a physical exertion punishment, which I think is probably its whole own podcast of the judgment calls of having student athletes perform physical punishment as retribution for something. But that's a separate thing. So what the punishment was that they were supposed to do bear crawls, which, if you're not familiar, is you have your hands on the ground walking and your feet on the ground walking, and you're supposed to keep your legs straight. Or crab walks, which is my understanding of crab walks, and this could have evolved because I've been out of high school for quite some time, but that's you have your feet on the ground and your hands on the ground behind you, and you're walking like a crab. And so they were doing bear crawls and crab walks, and I believe they were supposed to do it for a mile, which is 4 times around the track. And the problem, which, okay, so far you're like, maybe we wouldn't physically punish the kids, but there's not a clear lapse in
Okay, but
judgment
let's
just
not
quite
make
yet.
this about physical punishment in the sense of like you got to run laps because
Yeah.
somebody, whatever. That's not really the lapse in judgment per se.
So the problem was because this happened during the middle of the day in the heat of Texas outside, and the kids who did this punishment had first and second degree burns on their hands. And it is alleged that one of the parents afterwards went back to the track during the same time of the day and took a temperature reading from the track, and that it was 125 degrees. The kids report that they told the advisor that their hands were burning, and she didn't care and made them go back to walking on their hands and their feet in different modalities, despite the burns. So that, yeah, they ended up with first and second degree burns, and at least one of the students was seen at the burn unit. So this is not like, ooh, my hands, I didn't like it. One of the kids was actually seen at the burn unit. So,
Okay, but
yeah.
just because they were seen doesn't mean that they needed like a skin graft on their hands.
Okay, but
But on the other hand, it apparently was enough that they felt it needed
I mean,
medical
they
attention.
were they were admitted to the burn unit. They didn't present themselves, and then I mean they
No, they weren't. They said they were seen at
right.
the burn unit.
Right, but seen doesn't mean I presented myself at the burn unit and they said, you're a baby, go home. Seen at the
I
burn
don't
unit
think
means
you
that
do
you
that.
received care at the burn unit. Jeez.
And it doesn't say anywhere that anyone put butter on their hands and sent them away. Which, if you're not of a certain age, no one understands that joke. But that used to be a thing. Is you would put butter on a burn, which is, of course, medically one of the worst things you can do. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, but I
Um,
digress because this is not a medical podcast. Go ahead.
so of course the school district does release a statement saying that this is not aligned with their values. Safety and well-being is a top priority. This type of incident is not reflective of their standards or their values. They're addressing it, they're investigating, they want to express concern and regret for the pain and
Yada yada yada.
distress, and that they have policies in place for appropriate discipline, and that they are reviewing if there was a deviation from their policies of appropriate discipline. So,
And I think let me try to be fair because I feel like I've already gotten myself in trouble with all the cheerleaders and the burn people out there now. But to be fair, clearly I would assume that this advisor did not go. I know what I can do. I can burn their hands. I mean, clearly that was not probably the case. But it does say that the kids reported, hey, this is, it's burning my hands or whatever, and you could have pivoted to, fine, we're going to run laps, or we're going to
yeah,
do push-ups in the grass, or we're going to do the whatever's in the grass. So I think it's one of those things where you get down that road
yeah,
and you don't want to pivot and you don't want to lose face, and you're trying to make a point in maybe not the best way to begin with, and now you're kind of stuck
yeah,
with that judgment call. And I think maybe the takeaway here is, number one, I always like it when the punishment fits the crime, but I mean, and it wasn't like, oh, you didn't bear walk good enough, I'm going to make you do it for a mile.
no, I'm sorry,
But
no, I mean, in this instance the crime was an inappropriate cheer, so the punishment would be you're only going to do cheers that are about like what, equations and like
No,
spelling
it probably
appropriate
was a
words?
situation where she said, where they didn't do what they were told to do. They said, "No, you can't, we're not doing that." And they said, "Well, we're going to do it anyways. What are you going to do? We just did it." And so I get it.
Yeah.
You want there to be a consequence. And, I don't I am always about appropriate consequences. That's not really the concern. I think it's more that you backed yourself into a corner with a not great idea to begin with, and
Yes.
then you went with it.
Yeah.
So there's that one. So now
And
we'll
and the other thing that I will say in the defense of the advisor is, it is possible that on other occasions the cheerleaders had to do things that they didn't want to do and they complained about it. And so you do sometimes have a little bit of a boy who cried wolf situation where, yeah, in this instance their hands were burning off. But maybe in other instances they were running for conditioning and they said my legs are falling off and the advisor was like your legs aren't falling off, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
but that speaks to your point of you have to, when you're working in education and you're working with kids, you have to be able to discern between a kid whining and, oh shoot, I'm making them literally get first
Well,
degree burns on their hands.
and at what, when have I made my point to such an extent that I don't need to finish this bad judgment? I'm not just going to stick with it because, So
Yes.
all right. So that one you can argue on both sides. Next one, I'm having a little difficulty arguing on both sides. So this is unfortunately also in Texas. So our apologies to Texas, but it's a huge state, so there's a lot of schools. Also just within the last few weeks.
It is a coincidence that it's in Texas. We are not in any way
No,
targeting
no, but I'm
Texas.
saying it's a big state, so of course you're going to have lots of school districts. So
Yeah,
there's a potential for lots of bad
mistakes.
judgment
Yeah.
in lots of states, not just Texas. So this is an elementary school where I believe it was a kindergarten class, and the students. I'll just cut to the chase. Well, I could probably try to build suspense, as in, kid comes home, he's got a sticker, and he says it's his sleeping sticker, and another kid comes home and has a sticker. Long story short, um, the teachers were giving them sleep aids so that the nap time in the afternoon, so that they would actually sleep. So
We
they give the kids sleeping stickers that they believe are the investigation is checking into, or they believe that they are in fact sleeping aids. So you've
Wait, I'm
got
sorry.
like,
Wait, I'm sorry. The sticker itself was a sleep aid, or the sticker
yes,
was your
no, no, no,
reward for taking a sleep aid?
no, no, no. You put the sticker. It's apparently some kind of a sleep, a sleeping aid that is
Huh.
probably subdermal that you put it on as a sticker. So they're given these stickers, and I am sure that nap time goes significantly better
When you
when
drug
you
the kids.
sleep aid, which probably I would imagine is not designed for children, and I'm 100% sure is not designed to be given in an educational environment, pretty
Without
sure,
the consent of the parents. Yeah.
without the consent of the parents. And then for it to get even a little bit more egregious, one of the parents reports it to the school and doesn't hear anything for 2 weeks. And then finally sends out a mass text. I don't know to whom, but maybe to all the other parents. And then other parents start to go, "Hey, look, you got a sticker too. What exactly does that mean?" And it's a special sticker, a sleeping sticker. And so again, you have to go, come on. What was the thinking here? I mean, as you pointed out, I'm giving some kind of medication, whether it is not actual medication, but some sort of a supplement. I'm giving kids something without the knowledge of their parents for no reason other than I want them to take a nap in the afternoon. And then the school can't be bothered to respond to it quickly enough. And I believe and some of the kids were taken to the hospital to make sure that nothing, was happening. And the parents are reporting that the kids don't want to go to bed at night because they're up, well, of course they are, because
Because we
um, So these members were removed from these two teachers were removed from the classroom, placed on administrative leave, and they're looking at it. And it was the delayed communication was termed by the assistant superintendent, quote unquote, a failure. Yes, ignoring the fact you're drugging kids for 2 weeks is in fact a failure. And
Well,
so they want it to be. I believe it is also a child, child abuse investigation at this point.
okay, so first of all, my mind is blown by the fact that we can patch a kid to make him sleep. And so I've done a little bit of research. It seems like there are ones that deliver melatonin as us that you put it right on the kid's skin and it's delivering melatonin. That's an option. There are also ones that you put on a kid's clothing and it's doing like essential oils that
No, this was on their skin.
okay. So there's that. I mean all of them are over the counter. So we're to say we're drugging kids is a little bit I am being a little facetious to say that we're drugging kids, but there's like a lot of these to choose from, which I didn't know. I didn't realize. I'm not a parent yet. So, I mean, yes, you identified sort of the big concerns. Number one, we are doing a administration of medication or administration of medication adjacent type behavior without the knowledge and the consent of the parents. Number
Yeah,
one.
forget whether it's medication. Do I, as a teacher, have the right to go, you know what, you need this supplement? Let me give you
Yeah,
some St. John's wort every morning, or let me give you a
right.
teaspoon of castor oil every day, because I think that's what's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, educators are not in a position of introducing supplements, medication, or whatever without the parents' knowledge. And this is kind of the epitome of the thing we always talk about is what's good for kids versus what's convenient for adults. I kind of think this has more to do with convenience.
Yeah, it's not a good look. And I think also your point in terms of the investigation taking 2 weeks and the communication. I actually to piggyback off of this, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this morning. In her kid's school, they found a bullet in a kid's backpack, in a first grader's backpack, and then later on they found another bullet, and the discussion, obviously we had a lot of discussion, but one of the sort of glaring opportunities for the administration to have circumvented some of the problems was that the administration sent a message to the classroom, the kids, the parents, where that bullet was found, but then the PTO sent the notification to the school community at large. And so you're already, as a principal, you are starting from a position of being on the back foot and potential mistrust. And now it is kind of crummy on behalf of the PTO to put the administration in that position. But that lack of communication, or that perceived lack of communication, I mean, we always see that. It's what you say, it's not the crime, it's the cover up. That perceived lack of communication is what makes what could be an otherwise simply solved problem into something much larger. Do you have anything else to say there? It's bizarre when you've gone completely silent. It always makes me a bit nervous.
Might have something to do with my dog barking hysterically.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. There.
Well,
listener.
it's a live recorded podcast. People know that we don't have that high of production values. They come here for us and for the information. So anyway, so you can kind of see, the thread between these, and obviously we've had other examples in the past and we'll have more examples in the future, but those ripple knock-on effects of these decisions that maybe don't seem to be that big or that catastrophic in the moment, and sort of how they can have those outwards rippling effects. So, do you have any final word on it, or we can always revisit these type of
No,
concerns?
unfortunately, I think we're going to have lots more examples of this kind of judgment. So stay tuned.
Yeah. So there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us for the School Safety Free Period podcast. If you have an incident that you'd like us to talk and pick apart and make fun of on the podcast, I can't believe you would volunteer for such a thing. But you can always shoot us an email, info@eschoolsafety.org. We also always love to hear questions and comments and different concerns that you have in the work that you do. You can shoot us an email with those, info@eschoolsafety.org. You can always head to our website for more information and free resources. It's www.eschoolsafety.org. Thanks again.